Atheists commonly criticize the biblical concept of divine forgiveness, an idea that lies at the heart of Christianity. Many atheists have made videos ridiculing the idea that you could commit any transgression, and so long as you pray sincerely to God and ask His forgiveness, then you are forgiven and your crimes are wiped clean. The idea is directly connected to the idea of Jesus, who supposedly died for our sins, acting as a punishment proxy. There seems to me to be two main areas from which atheist objections may spring. The first is the idea of justice, that it would be unjust for a person to commit a sin only to be forgiven for it without punishment by an unaffected third party. In many places, anything less than an eye for an eye retaliation is unacceptable. In some societies, this has even led to ridiculous blood-for-blood retaliation, where, for example, if one man's child is murdered, he is permitted to take vengeance by murdering the child of the original killer. From such barbaric thinking has emerged blood feuds lasting hundreds or even thousands of years. In many countries, including America, you can buy forgiveness and avoid what most would consider just consequences with cold hard cash. If I use my cash or that cash is given to me by another makes no difference to systems that permit this form of absolution. The idea of justice is clearly a subjective social construct. It is culturally, regionally and temporally malleable, and whilst many countries in the modern world have agreed upon approximately similar ideas of justice, America's continued use of the death sentence demonstrates that rational minds do not always produce rational results. I'm not convinced that justice is a powerful enough reason to object. The second objection to supernatural forgiveness is more visceral, but is no more rational or consistent under scrutiny than the idea of justice. In fact, it is even worse. The idea is that only the wronged party can offer forgiveness. In one sense of the word, forgiveness, letting go of hatred towards a transgressor and looking upon them with compassion, is indeed an act that can only be carried out by the wronged party. Although from a theological perspective, a Christian might argue that wrongdoings are a far greater transgression against the perfect and elevated morality of God the Creator than against any earthly victim, so it naturally follows that He is the one who has the ultimate right to forgive. So far as punishment is concerned, the only person whose forgiveness matters is the one doing the sentencing. From a Christian perspective, God's penalty is infinity in torment or separation from Him, so it makes sense that Christians would value His forgiveness over that of any earthly person. From an atheistic perspective, it is very easy to recognise the appeal of justice that transcends the corruptibility of man. From the perspective of personal absolution, the only person who counts is the perpetrator. If I punch you, you can choose not to forgive me and I can quite happily continue on my way with your blood still dripping from my knuckles. Or, conversely, you could offer me all the forgiveness you are capable of, but if I cannot forgive myself, it could gnaw at me for the rest of my life. And what if the wronged person is the only one able to give forgiveness and I have killed him? Does that mean that forgiveness or absolution is forever impossible? Or not necessary? Of course not. Society appoints itself, via trained justice experts, as arbiter of my punishment and when forgiveness is due. In other words, society acts as arbiter and proxy for the victim. The victims are expressly excluded from being involved in sentencing because it is assumed that they are incapable of impartiality. How is that any different to Yahweh offering vicarious forgiveness? One person is wronged and somebody other than the wronged person uses the social construct of justice to punish and ultimately forgive the perpetrator. It's very easy to see how anyone would be drawn to the idea of an eternal, external judge of good and bad, whose standards are more perfect and infallible than anything made up by man, and who is the final arbiter of all matters. Of course, this is directly related to theistic beliefs about absolute morality. For God to be the arbiter, He also has to be the one setting the standards. At first glance, the idea of justice that transcends the vagaries and corruptibility of humanity seems appealing. After all, no sin goes unpunished, even when there are no witnesses to see it. Even thought becomes a crime according to the biblical worldview. To me, the allure of those who transgress against me always receiving their just deserts, whatever that may mean in God's cosmic view, is quickly negated by the fact that every microsecond of my existence is also being judged, and even my tiniest imperfection is being remembered to be used against me, like a nagging girlfriend dragging up in an argument minor things you did 15 years ago. I don't know if this belief particularly appeals to simplistic-minded people who are already drawn to authoritarianism and order, or, as I suspect, the belief in a cosmic, constantly finger-wagging God creates a classroom sneak mentality amongst Christians, who grow to desire punishment for the tiniest crime. Given that America, which has the highest percentage of Christians in the civilized world, also incarcerates the most people per capita on the planet, I suspect the latter, and it's clear that such a belief does not make for better people. Of course, the massive hypocrisy is that the Bible teaches that people will get their just rewards or otherwise after death, and that we should not consider ourselves as judges. So, as much as we might be drawn to the idea that mass murderers never get to die rich and happy, and that there is an absolute set of standards against which we are all being judged, with a few moments thought the horrific reality of such a universe as claimed by Christianity is far worse than knowing that Idi Amin and Jeffrey Dahmer paid very little for their heinous crimes. Christopher Hitchens talked about a capricious God, and he's exactly right. A God who considers it justice to drown a planet, allow slavery, rip teenagers to pieces for taunting his prophet, promote rape, pillage and murder, and who tortures people in the bellies of giant fish for exercising their free will, is hardly a role model for any kind of justice that we would consider reasonable or proportional. To which Christians will quickly counter that his will and his standards of morality are beyond our capacity to understand. Which brings us to another point. If the rules are incomprehensible, vary according to his mood, and are only sketched out in the most superficial and incomplete bullet point form, omitting rape, slavery and copyright theft, what fucking chance do any of us have of meeting his standards? If I go annex my neighbours for being atheists, then rape their daughters as a reward or to create more converts, am I breaking a commandment or following the example laid down on numerous occasions? If I go to war upon my government's command and kill my nation's enemies, am I rendering unto Caesar or breaking the fifth commandment? Clearly I am not allowed to bear false witness, but what about when I repeat demonstrably untrue passages in the Bible in the name of spreading the word? Given that God seems pretty uncompromising, what are my chances of getting into heaven after I forgot to return a library book, or masturbated over a photo of Mila Jovovich, or cheated in that junior high test? Were they even sins? In the United States there are now so many laws that they cannot count them, and it's absolutely certain that everyone breaks dozens of them every day. In some states it's illegal to play dominoes on a Sunday, wear a fake moustache to church, mispronounce the name Arkansas, eat in your car, bathe naked, or say the words, "oh boy." The idea of absolute justice may seem appealing, but in reality you could never learn all of the rules, and according to the Christian worldview, the rules are not written down, change at random, and don't even follow any consistent pattern. As the guards in the Elder Scrolls games say, I won't tell you what the rules are, but if you break one I'll let you know. Now can you imagine trying to obey an unreasonable, schizophrenic being who has no compunction about killing or torturing the very closest of his children? Hey guys, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please take the time to rate and comment, and it would mean a lot to me if you would subscribe. Thank you.